Coming up, can the SEC make history in 2017? And will Gus Malzahn survive 2017? We'll try to decide next right here on AT&T SEC Country Live. Hello everyone and welcome to AT&T SEC Country Live. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Alabama All-American Mike Johnson. Great to have you with us on our program today as we talk about everything in the SEC heading towards a rivalry weekend. Now we know that's true for Alabama and Tennessee, but some of these other rivalries may be a little better than you might anticipate. And of course, plenty of storylines as always.
Yeah, we're just not running out of them. Jared Stidham, Butch Jones. We're going to get to a little bit of John Kelly, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Griffith also coming up a little later on as well, about 40 minutes after the hour. We'll talk to him about the third Saturday in October clash between Alabama and Tennessee. Before any of that, though, let me remind you that AT&T is a proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make sure you make the switch to AT&T Wireless and DirecTV, and they'll help you stay connected all football season long. For now, though, let's dive into the big stories around the SEC with our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. Item number one on the list, the possibility that you could get two teams from the SEC in the college football playoff. It seems almost like a complete impossibility that any conference could get two teams in this playoff. The playoff seems designed against that, but right now when you look at the rise of a couple teams in the SEC, specifically Alabama and Georgia, the fall of a few teams nationally, Clemson losing on Friday, for instance, maybe the possibility exists that the SEC could get two in. However, one guy that disagrees with that notion is ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit. Here's what Herbstreit said on television on Tuesday about the chances of the league getting in two teams. He says, I just cannot imagine a scenario where the committee is willing to put two from one conference in. That's Herbstreit kind of pushing back on the notion of Alabama and Georgia making the college football playoff. Whether you think it should be or shouldn't be, do you agree with Herbstreit's reading of the room on that?
No, I don't. I can absolutely see a scenario where you can get two SEC teams in because I think you've seen the dominoes start to fall. Clemson losing on Friday. They don't seem to be the strong team that we would be. All those teams out west in the Pac-12 starting to fall. They look like no matter what, they might be the odd man left out. I think when you look at the Big 12, TCU, some of these other teams, the fact that they're also going to play a championship game this year for the first time in quite some time, they could be left out as well. I think back to the 2012 SEC championship game when I think of this scenario. If both Bama and Georgia go into the SEC title game and we see a game that close like we saw in 2012, you can't tell me that there won't be upheaval if both teams are left out.
Well, there may be upheaval from the people in the South, but the problem is that's only going to come from the people in the South. I'm a big believer that the college football playoff is largely, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not legitimate in the way that it presents itself as legitimate. It would describe itself as trying to find the four best teams in the country. That's who makes it in. The truth is, it's really about the four teams that are best for business. And Alabama and Georgia both have big fan bases, but in terms of national TV ratings, two teams from the same conference in the playoff is not good for the national TV rating. So from that standpoint, even though that's probably not the point that Herbstreit would argue, from that standpoint, I think he's right that they want a cross-section of America in the playoff. It's going to be very hard to put two teams from any one league in there because it just diminishes the number of people who watch these games on television.
But I'm going to disagree with you, though, because I think when you look at the teams that could possibly take their place, I think that Penn State, if they run the table, they're going to be locked in. They'll have to beat a good Wisconsin team. I think you can look at the ACC and make a legitimate argument that Clemson can get back in with one loss. But I think when you start lining up Alabama or Georgia, one loss either way, if either one's 12-1, line that up against TCU, line that up against a possible Washington State from the Pac-12, line that up against some of the other teams you can see around the country. I think the better storyline would be two teams coming from the SEC. I really do. The fan bases are there, the following is there, and I think it's better for business if you have somebody like that over some of these kind of not mid-level teams, but some of those teams that are lesser known coming from the big conference.
Diedrich Frazier says if an undefeated UGA wins, an SEC one-loss Alabama will get in also. Maybe that's the case. However, there's at least one SEC coach that might say that one of these teams is better than the other right now. In terms of Alabama and Georgia both making a push for the playoff, Vanderbilt coach Derek Mason, because he's played both teams, was asked about Alabama and Georgia today on the SEC coaches teleconference. Here's what he said. Having played both teams, Alabama's the better team just in my mind. I think where the difference is in Alabama's secondary. Alabama's just purely dominant on defense right now. Now, one of the reasons that may cause Mason to say this, because we saw the Georgia secondary challenge a little bit on Saturday against Missouri. Some big pass plays came the way of the Missouri offense at the expense of that Georgia secondary. When Kirby Smart met with the media this week, he also acknowledged that, yeah, our defense gave up more big plays than they like to give up. Here's what Kirby had to say about that.
I think there's always a little credit given to them. and always a little blame given to us. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's got responsibility, somebody's got coverage, and they got to do a good job. But give them credit; their quarterback's got a big arm, and that kid's a fast receiver. You know, I mean, if you take out 2 plays, you really don't play that bad a defense. It's 126 yards or something on 2 plays. That's almost half their offense. And we knew before the game, we said, don't give up big plays, and you got a chance. And we gave up two big plays. But you know what? We'll learn from that. We'll get better from that. And that defense needed a wake-up call. To go out and play better.
So that's Kirby Smart there saying, hey, essentially downplaying the fact that his secondary had a couple bad ones against Missouri, saying, we'll learn it, we'll get better. But the weakness that Georgia may have shown in the secondary, does that make them inferior to Alabama right now?
I don't think it's just this past weekend. I think obviously, Vanderbilt lining up against and playing both of these teams. To me, I think that the way you saw Alabama dominate Vanderbilt probably skews the way Derek Mason thinks about this football team. I mean, Vanderbilt was able to do nothing. I mean, this team completely dominated from the word go against Alabama. Now, Georgia, I'm not ready to say they're inferior to Alabama, but the game, the way they shaped up with each other, was a little bit different. I don't know that Georgia went in and dominated from start to finish the way Alabama did. I know he can point at the secondary. You can look at this past weekend. I don't think Georgia's secondary is as bad as they probably looked this past week on a paper, like he was, like Kirby Smart was saying. But I think it is an interesting comment coming from Derek Mason that he's watched, not only played the game, but he's watched film on both of these teams.
Darren Stinchcomb, by the way, in the comment section says, well, Derek Mason, who we just heard from, the Vanderbilt coach, he thought his team could beat Alabama and thought they matched up well with Georgia, so maybe his opinion's irrelevant. Maybe that is the case. Then Mason, who lost 59-0 to Georgia, or I should say to Alabama, lost 45-14 to Georgia, maybe he's not the most equipped coach to make this comparison, given the fact that he wasn't within the same zip code of either team in the games they play.
That's a very good way to put it. I mean, you mentioned it yesterday, kind of coming out at halftime and saying, you know what, we're built to stop this Georgia team and their running game. Kind of saying before that Alabama game, there was some talk about how those two teams matched up and Alabama absolutely wipes the floor with them. Neither one of these games close. I think that both of these teams went in and kind of handled business in terms of how they approached this Vanderbilt game. So it's all going to be about matchups. I think we can talk about who's the better team right now and who matched up better against Vanderbilt, but it's about who matches up better against each other when that time comes.
Let's look at item number 2 on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. Some news from Auburn. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Coming off the loss for Auburn to LSU is the, I guess, revelation that Jarrett Stidham does not have the freedom to audible on play calls. Even when the defense starts sliding extra defenders up in the box, Stidham apparently doesn't have the freedom to kind of check out of that play and go to something else and put himself in a position to maybe have a better play. We had Ben Wolk, who covers Auburn for SECCountry.com, on the show yesterday. This has been kind of a big deal nationally, what Stidham said about his quarterback situation, but Ben Wolk says that maybe there's a little too much being made of this. Here's what Wolk said with us yesterday.
I do think that it was a little bit overblown on Sunday when Jarrett Stidham, when he was talking about this. I mean, he was asked very specifically about a very specific situation, whether or not he was allowed to check out of that play call or not. I think that Gus Malzahn, just in general, probably doesn't let his quarterbacks have as much control over the offense as some people would like.
And maybe it is the case that Malzahn is just restrictive and hesitant to kind of add this kind of control to the plate that a quarterback has on the field. Malzahn likes to stick with the play that was called, but when he met with the media this week, Mike, the one thing he did say, though, is that Stidham's actually got more freedom to do this kind of stuff than any quarterback he's ever had. Here's what Malzahn said.
Jarrett probably has more flexibility than any quarterback that we've had since I've been in college, just from the standpoint to change protections, the RPOs, and the decision-making. He probably has more freedom than any quarterback we've had.
Here's the problem with that, though, Mike, and this is what I want you to kind of weigh in on. When you listen to what Malzahn says there, it seems to be inconsistent with what Chip Lindsey, the offensive coordinator for Auburn, said back in August upon taking this job. Justin Ferguson, who covers Auburn for SECCountry.com, kind of shared this on Twitter this week, looking back to August, what Lindsey said before the season began. Sometimes it depends, not all the time, about audibling. He says sometimes. I think you try to call plays that maybe you don't have to check out of, but there will be times I expect that he has to do that. So what I read there from Lindsey is a level of freedom that he's describing for Jarrett Stidham that he doesn't seem to have during the season. A lot to talk about here, but is this an example of Lindsey and Malzahn not necessarily being on the same page?
I don't think so. I think this is being a little bit overblown. Typically when you see most college quarterbacks, they don't have to walk up to the line of scrimmage and make whatever audible they want to. Not only that, but this is not only Jarrett Stidham's first year at Auburn, this is the first year that Chip Lindsey and Gus Malzahn have worked together. So there's so many dynamics when you look at this. A lot of times in that offense, they kind of have that fake snap where they look to the sideline, they get a call from maybe Gus Malzahn or Chip Lindsey, and they move on with it. quarterbacks that I play with, you have kill plays where maybe you send 2 plays into the huddle and you have the ability to kind of switch those. You're going to have like your red ball 2-minute plays where you can line up and say, hey, number 1, number 5. You have those plays kind of lined up. I don't think that I've ever been around a quarterback, at least not in college ball, maybe not until I got to Ryan in the NFL, where you can really walk up and just say, hey, here's what I want to do. That just doesn't happen very much among college quarterbacks, because a lot of times they don't have the knowledge of the system that you really want to be able to make plays. Now, there are circumstances. You're putting on a draw game and you have 8 guys lined up with double A-gap mugs. Yeah, you're going to have the quarterback have the ability to kind of check out of that, maybe go into a pass game. But for the most part, when you look at Auburn's offense, the ability is kind of woven there into the play. Hey, I can hand this off. I can do speed sweep. I can give it to the running back. I can take it myself from the quarterback position, or I can do one of those RPO throws. A lot of times in Gus Malzahn's offense, the ability is there to kind of change the play, and you don't always have to audible.
So you obviously know much more about what's actually happening on the field than I do. That's one of the reasons why you're here, because you have that perspective of having been an ex-player. But there's also this sort of perspective that I have where even just being a fan in the stands, you're able to look down on Auburn and you see the storyline playing out right in front of your eyes. Gus Malzahn has not relinquished control. Now, there was a lot of evidence before the start of the season that's what he was going to do.
Yes.
This was going to be Chip Lindsey's offense. This was going to be Chip Lindsey's team, and he could run that side of the football the way that he wanted to. But, you can go back and watch this press conference posted online. You can see it for yourself. Every single week, Malzahn has asked some version of, who's calling the plays? Is it you or is it Chip Lindsey? And every single time, Malzahn seems to defer, no, this is Chip Lindsey's offense. I'll take the responsibility for the performance of the team, but this is Lindsey's offense. I'm not micromanaging. He's in control. But this seems to be the old Gus Malzahn here, and I was under the impression that the new Chip Lindsey meant the end of the old Gus Malzahn.
Well, and here's the honest truth for me. I actually believe Gus Malzahn when he says that. I think he had truly relinquished play calling control. I think that he had to do that. I think that's something he's able to lean off of. And Chip Lindsey, is he in Chip Lindsey's ear possibly saying, you know what, I think we should run the ball here. I think we should throw the ball here. Yes, but it doesn't look to me like Gus Malzahn is calling. When I see this play, when I see what Auburn's putting on the field right now, it's not really about play call. It's about offensive design and the lack to really make changes throughout the game. And I know that Gus Malzahn has had the ability to do that in the past, and we haven't seen this offense do that. So that makes me lean on Chip Lindsey's probably the guy pulling the punches right here, because you don't see the changes that Gus Malzahn's made in the past. Maybe Chip Lindsey just isn't ready to kind of push through.
Final point for me, actually a comment from our comment section from Brian Wright, who says that Gus Malzahn's just a glorified high school coach. Now, this is actually factually true. He once was a high school coach. He's kind of worked his way into being a high-level college football coach. But I have to admit here, and I'm probably oversimplifying this when I say this, but I have to admit, hearing Malzahn not trust his quarterback, former 5-star prospect who's going to play in the NFL in all likelihood in one day, at least that was the plan before the start of the season, hearing Malzahn not trust that guy to make decisions for himself in the line of scrimmage, that feels like a high school. It doesn't feel like a big-time college coach. This feels like a guy who's trying to have it too simple, the way that used to be back in the old glory days of Friday nights in Arkansas, and not the rigors and the rough and tough SEC. This does not feel advanced enough for what Auburn needs to be trying to do, at least in my impression.
Well, and maybe a lot of things have changed since I've been in college, but like I said, I don't know if I've ever been around a quarterback in college that just had the ability to go up to the line of scrimmage and call what they wanted to call. You had safe plays, you had checks where you could get out of certain things and maybe call, a toss play into a blitz or call a screen into a blitz. But I was never a part of an offense where the quarterback just had free will to go do whatever it was. And like I was saying, in Auburn's offense, a lot of times the safety measures are included in that play. You have so many different options on Gus Malzahn's offense. That's why it's been so hard to stop for so many defenses. Hey, I can throw the ball here. I can throw the quick slant. I can hand the ball off. I can keep it myself. I can speed sweep. That's what Gus Malzahn's offense has been. And so that's why I think I understand a little bit of what he's talking about. There's just never a scenario where you have to do that.
That's Mike Johnson. I'm Brandon Adams. It's AT&T SEC Country Live. AT&T, a proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make sure you switch to AT&T Wireless and DirecTV to stay connected all season long. I think we need to have an emergency intervention here, if you don't mind. Can we do that, please? I'm very concerned about something. I don't say it lightly. Tennessee, this is item number 3 on our AT&T SEC Country Live first and 10 list. I just think this is such a bad idea. So Tennessee this week, and if you go to their football Twitter account, this is like the pinned tweet right at the top of the page. They have made themselves a very cute video of Tennessee running back John Kelly.
All we have to call it cute, man. I mean,
because it's terrible timing. Is this the message that you want to send to Alabama a few days before you play this game? First of all, there's a weird concept to this. There's like a bowling ball theme to all this. Watch this video and tell me if you think the Alabama defense is doing anything other than sharpening its knives. Here's the Tennessee video. How about how proud they are of their running back, John Kelly? Take a look at this. So you start with the bowling ball here. I'm not even sure what the bowling ball has to do with anything.
I don't know.
I mean, he's not really a bowling ball running back, is he? Bowling ball running backs are short, little squatty things. That's not what John Kelly is.
No, he's definitely not.
Is he a really good bowler? Is that what it is?
You're asking the wrong guy, man.
I don't even think that is John Kelly that's doing the bowling there.
It's not John Kelly. It's
Thing left to do.
And first of all, that ball's heading for the gutter anyway. We'll eventually get to the ball
throwing
stuff.
a hook
Now, after the bowling stuff, you get to John Kelly. And, here's Tennessee kind of showing you all the things that Kelly can do against Georgia Tech. This Georgia Tech defense is not in the same universe what Alabama's going to be. There he is running over Florida, but he didn't get the ball on the goal line against Florida. Anyway, you get the point.
You are so ruthless, man.
No, I'm telling you.
You are so ruthless right now.
He, because of this video, is going to have 37 yards rushing on Saturday.
He was going to have 37
He's
yards
going to have 37 yards rushing on Saturday. You know this, and you know and what makes you mad is you know that I'm right.
No,
Scott Cochran is going to show this video. He's going to take that team and put them in the biggest IMAX amphitheater that exists in Tuscaloosa, assuming a place like that exists, and he's going to show 10 stories tall John Kelly running all over Georgia Tech and UMass and all these other ham and egg teams that Tennessee's played, and he says this thinks he's going to do this to you, and they're going to go out there and they're going to beat him senseless.
But here's how I saw this playing out. When I first saw this hype video, when I saw this included and pinned at the top of their Twitter account, here's how I saw it playing out. You can see a couple of guys maybe up in Tennessee's video department, and they're sitting there going, man, we haven't been able to do anything in quite a while. There's really been nothing to celebrate up here. So let's see what we can come up with. Let's look at all the top 5 and top 10 list of statistics around the SEC. Well, we're not there in defense. We don't really have any quarterbacks that are going that direction because we just switched. There's no receivers that are doing anything. We can't really count on anything else. Oh, wait, we have the number 5 rusher in the SEC. Let's do a video about John Kelly. There was really nothing to do. I mean, if you're Tennessee's video department and you're their PR department right now, your hands are so tied. I mean, you have to do something, and you have to do, it's like a sleight of hand trick. Hey, look up here while everything's going on down here. So that's what they're doing right
I'm all for you making a video for John Kelly. I think he deserves it. I think he's a good player. Y'all know that I think he is. But release it at the end of the season. Just totally ignore the Alabama game and just do the great moments of John Kelly this season.
Yeah.
Don't give this thing to me 3 days before you play Alabama, because it's only going to make Alabama want to go out there and beat you worse.
Well, I think that I'm worried less about the fact that it was John Kelly, and I just don't know if they should have made any kind of video to begin with, because what are they going to do, a hype video for this game? I mean, they're a 35-point underdog. I saw a money line today that's actually worse than the Troy money line was against LSU. I think was you had to bet $20,000 to win $1,000 or something crazy like that. And that tells me it's real. I think they would have been laughed at no matter what video they put out.
Well,
honestly.
Laughing's what they're getting right here. Jimmy Barnes says no highlights from the Georgia game in that video. Shocking. Jeremy Pettis says it's Gutterball University. Jeremy, I like that one. Justin Cutshaw says Kelly's the only force we got. I do understand that.
Yep.
Scott Waller also pointing out there's no highlights against Georgia in there. Dedrick Frazier says Tennessee's heading for the gutter. Chad Easton says this basically gave Alabama the game plan Saturday. Well, listen, we already know that. I mean, the only chance Tennessee has is to hope that John Kelly can get something going. But honestly, the thing that stopped Kelly enough this year has actually been the Tennessee play calling. It's been Tennessee's own coaches that have probably stopped Kelly more than anybody else has.
A lot of puzzling things in the play calling. And here's what I'll give Tennessee's offense, because you know me, I'm always going to be the one that's worrying about getting victories and playing week to week. If Garantano can go out and play similar to what Kellen Mond did, then I think that maybe there's a puncher's chance. Now, I don't think the Tennessee defense has the ability to do what Texas A&M's defense did against Alabama's offense, but I do see the ability in John Kelly with the breakaway speed to make a little noise. Now, I don't think he's going to rush for 100 yards. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy like that. But if you're going to lean on your best player, you're going to highlight somebody going into the game, why not lean on a guy like this that you might think has a little bit of a chance to kind of sway things in your favor? I don't mind it as much as you do. I do think it's funny that you called it cute. Kind of goes back to when you called their uniforms gimmicky. It's like such a slap in the face to call it cute.
Anyway,
oh man, that's bad.
So a lot of you continue weighing in this comment section. Arlen Block says UT made the video intentionally. They want to get the Bama defense fired up. They want and need a reason to fire Butch Jones. Is that what the thing is? Is this kind of like them kind of just throwing themselves in front of the bullet here to sort of take Alabama's best shot? So it'll be a nice clean separation when it's all said and done.
I think that might be what be going on here. I think that's what John Curry's doing at least.
Yeah.
Maybe the video department just got in there.
Yeah, maybe
let's get to a part of this.
He's the one that greenlit the video. All right, we'll transition here. Item number 4 in our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So Jim McElwain was asked a question today about the Florida suspensions and the injuries. You know, they had 9 guys suspended, a whole host of guys injured, including Tyree Cleveland, who essentially didn't play last week against Texas A&M. Kadarius Toney hurt as well. And McElwain was asked, have you ever been a part of a team that's had so many missing players, either due to suspension or due to injury? Here's the quote that McElwain gave on the SEC teleconference earlier today. He says, no, but it is what it is. There isn't a coach in the country that hasn't been through as much the same. The guys that are here are working hard, but at the end of the day, you have to win. So that's McElwain giving you almost the perfect answer there, not using an excuse, not sidestepping the results. But you and I can talk about this in a way that McElwain's not going to feel the freedom to. When you look at just how many players that Florida really is missing, is it an excuse? Can you forgive anything about the Florida season given the fact that you have subtracted the guy we thought would be Florida's best receiver, Antonio Callaway, best running back, Jordan Scarlett. Then, you know, the next best receiver, Tyree Cleveland, hasn't played. Jordan Sherritt's hurt now, big defensive lineman. Does this start to feel like a legitimate excuse for a mediocre season for the Gators?
Oh, not to mention the torn Achilles from from the safety beginning of the season. His name's escaping me right now. You have Nick Washington, whose shoulder is out right now, and then the list of people that are limited. Jim McElwain said this weekend reads as a who's who really on the Florida football team right now. Their best 5 players probably: Jabari Zuniga, Tyree Cleveland, Martez Ivey, Kadarius Toney, and Chauncey Gardner. I mean, that's the best 5 players that really Florida can put on the field. Extremely limited this week. And maybe that's just Jim McElwain saying, hey, we don't want them to get under fire. We don't want them to have to take live reps during this bye week. But, I mean, when you're reading that list and you look at also what they're missing, I would argue that they might be without their top 9 players going into the season, might be without both of them right now. Add in Luke Del Rio, who obviously you thought you would saw a reemergence at the quarterback position. They've been hit from all sides. Yeah. And I love this from Jim McElwain when he says, hey, I'm not going to give you any excuses. You know, it is what it is. Every coach around the country deals with this. Bottom line is you have to go out and win. It's extremely tough to do that, though, when all these players are missing right now. You just can't help it. I know you're not going to feel bad for them, but you can't help but feel a little bit bad, and I love the message.
But no, there's a specific reason I'm not going to feel bad for them, even though I will legitimately admit that's a lot of big names to lose off one team. But it's the same issue that Tennessee ran into last year when it started getting injuries. Now, last year it was Tennessee just injuries. It wasn't this host of suspensions for felony charges the way it is for Florida. But nonetheless, it's the same kind of thing. When you take guys out of your starting lineup, your depth is called into question. And Bryant Wright mentioned this in the comment section. He's right. McElwain did not recruit as well as an SEC caliber coach should have recruited at a place like Florida that's been the #1 overall class before and was a fixture in the top 5 under Will Muschamp. McElwain outside the top 20 in 2015, outside the top 10 in both 2016 and 2017, and hadn't needed a late flurry in 2017 just to build the class that he did. When you start taking guys off your roster, and it's been a lot for Florida, it highlights the big misses you've had in recruiting. So I think McElwain's right that this is an excuse because I think he only has him to blame for the state of his team right now. This is not a Florida-level recruiter, and this is not me criticizing Florida. This is me supporting Florida fans who I say deserve better than what they've gotten from McElwain from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, and I think there is some truth to that. I think when you look at the depth that Florida was bringing to the year, there's definitely ways to ask questions. Could he have recruited better? But I think that when you look at the fact that their top 7 defensive players from last year were drafted and headed to the NFL, not only that, but a couple of the backups signed undrafted free agents and were headed. 10 guys off that defense last year wound up in training camps this year in the NFL. So add that in to rebuilding the defense and on top of all the injuries and suspensions they've had, I think that's where you really run into a lot of problems. I think that Jim McElwain, for the most part, has done a good year this year coaching. I guess my end point is I don't think you can hold this year against Jim McElwain as a head coach as much as people want to when they look at the schedule.
Jesus Elias Alejandro says A&M's defense on Saturday against Florida is playing mainly freshmen. They're playing like experienced players. I mean, that is true. You know, sometimes freshman players can step up and play. In the comment section, also, you had, excuse me, let me scroll back up here and get it. Greg Steele, who said Florida had 13 starters injured last year, still won the East, comparing the performance last year to the performance from this year. The difference, I think, between the East last year for Florida and this year, though, is you didn't have a real legitimate contender to Florida. there was no one last year really challenged Florida. Georgia wasn't very good. Tennessee fell apart. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Missouri, they all what they were. But now you've got a team in the SEC in Georgia that's recruiting the way that an SEC power ought to. And all of a sudden, Florida's skating by and winning the East with kind of an average roster that's just going to be that's not going to be as easy to do anymore.
I agree with you. I think when I look at the SEC East from last year, from 2016, I saw a bunch of teams that probably should have been at the top when you look at Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee with the talent they had, but all losing to extremely average teams down the stretch. And that was kind of the nature of the beast last year. I mean, look at that Florida loss against Arkansas. 24-7 or something in that neighborhood. It's crazy to me. The way Tennessee loses to South Carolina, the way Georgia's able to give up some of the games they gave up. That to me was kind of the moniker of that of the SEC East last year. So I don't think you're seeing the same product in a lot of ways, like you pointed out.
All right, coming up in just a moment, we're going to take a look back at one of the great years in the history of the SEC and an era that Vols fans would definitely like to go back to. Gators fans maybe as well. We'll do that in just a moment. Before we get to that, let's do item number 5. Our AT&T SEC Country Live first and 10 list. So Mark Stoops had a really interesting idea this week. He was asked about Mississippi State using the cowbells. You know, Mississippi State and Kentucky played this week, and the Mississippi State fans who really used an illegal noise maker in the stadium to give themselves a home field advantage. You've said this before. I mean, what is it called? Scott Stadium? That thing's not going to be near as loud if you don't have those cowbells ringing in there. The noise that comes from Starkville is almost all artificial. And so Mark Stoops had kind of a response back to that. We'll show it to you. I thought this was actually pretty clever. He said, Joe Masato, who covers Kentucky for SECCountry.com, tweets this out. Maybe when Mississippi State comes here, we'll get air horns. I think that's a pretty good idea, right?
I definitely think it is. I think that maybe those would have to be checked at the door there at Kroger Field. I don't know that you can bring air horns. I think the Mississippi State people, for the most part, at the gates probably look the other way when people start walking in with cowbells because it is their tradition. I do think that's a very interesting point from Mark Stoops. So when you talk about artificial noisemakers, I think that kind of envelops what this series has been between Kentucky and Mississippi. I think this is a sneaky good game. When you look at Saturday and look at these two teams match up, Kentucky still controlling their own destiny in the SEC.
But I think that Stoops actually onto something here because, you know, the air horn as an artificial noisemaker is no different than the cowbell. In fact, it could even be louder. And, you know, I know some of our younger audience may not even know what an air horn even is. You've never even heard one. So I want to try to get some examples of like what an air horn is. And so I go online, I start typing away, and here's the first thing that I came up with as sort of an air horn sound effect. Take a listen to this. Does this sound like an air horn to you? Like, what is the deal with, like, everything now has to be sort of, like, jazzed up and sort of millennialized? It's like, that's not what an air...
Isn't that the beginning of a rap song, though?
It's like the beginning of... It's like a DJ air horn. Like, every rap song has this noise in it now. And I know, like, a lot of... This is what an air horn's supposed to sound like. This is a real air horn right here. Do we have it?
Or not.
Or not. Do we have the air horn?
It is right there.
Okay, good. So, yeah, that's what a real air horn is supposed to sound like. Can you imagine a bunch of Kentucky fans just blowing those air horns?
I cannot imagine it. When I was in college and we wake up at training camp at 6 a.m., this is how Scott Cochran used to come into my bedroom. With an air horn. You know,
are you serious?
Oh my God. And I'm talking about levitated off the bed, we're on your shoes, we're on your feet, putting your shoes on within 2 seconds. That gives me nightmares just listening to it still.
Gary Lawn says Tennessee's the worst with artificial noise. They set up speakers to blast music all game. A lot of these SEC stadiums do that now. Now, were you playing for the Falcons when they were pumping in crowd noise?
I got a good story about that too.
Yeah, please tell us about this.
I was standing on the sidelines for the Falcons, you know, and I used to turn around. I'd take my helmet off, and I would turn around and going, there's no way this crowd is this loud right now. Sure enough, 2 years later, it like comes out the NFL suspending people. People got fired over the Falcons pumping in the crowd noise and the jump. I didn't even know that was a rule, but there was a lot of, I think they gave up a draft pick over that, and that was just something that was crazy.
They got seriously punished. Jesus Alejandro says, I've been to Mississippi State Stadium. Their cowbells get loud, distractive, and insanely loud. And listen, I'm not mad at Mississippi State, but why are they the only ones allowed to sort of like bring this like clear like contraband into the stadium?
Because they're Mississippi State. I mean, let's be honest here. If this was you know, Florida doing something like this, anybody bringing air horns in, it'd be a much bigger deal. I think there would be much bigger fuss made about it. But it's Mississippi State. You know, they've done this for a long time, and I don't think anybody's willing to try to stop it.
Here's my point: if Mississippi State fans can bring in cowbells, the rest of the SEC will be able to bring in bourbon. Does that seem like a fair trade-off right there?
I'm so down with that.
That just seems like a fair trade. If they can bring in those cowbells, the Mississippi, then the rest of the SEC ought to be able to bring in a little bit of bourbon. That's my idea. Hey, we'll get back to our first and 10 here coming up in just a moment. We'll also, about 10 minutes from right now, say hello to Mike Griffith, who covers the Tennessee Vols for SECCountry.com. We'll ask him point blank, will Butch Jones coach another game for the Vols after Saturday? We'll do that coming up. But before that, we look ahead. Let's look back here to the last time Tennessee got a victory against the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's all the way back in 2006, and it's the subject of our Tony Sachery's Seasons to Remember. Tony Sasheries presents Seasons to Remember and a look back at 2006. And as hard as it is to believe, that's as far back as you have to go to find the last Tennessee win versus Alabama. The third Saturday in October, once one of the sport's most hallowed days, has lately been rendered into an afterthought. The Vols hope to change that history this Saturday, though. Elsewhere in the SEC, 2006 was a good year for Florida, as the Gators earned their second national championship in program history, and the first of two for then-coach Urban Meyer. The Florida title started a streak of 7 consecutive national championships for the SEC, including 3 for Nick Saban in Alabama, who was hired by the Crimson Tide at the end of that year. Just one of the things that makes 2006 a season to remember. Seasons to Remember here on AT&T SEC Country Live is brought to you by Tony Sasheries. Looking to spice up your next tailgate? Make sure you check out Tony Sasheries, tailgate champion since 1972. Tony Sasheries makes everything taste great. When we think about 2006, Robbie's thinking about an era that you know and remember really well.
I got a bone to pick with y'all. I mean, how come every time we have to remember a season, it's like a bad season for Alabama? Hey, let's go back to the last time Tennessee beat Alabama. Oh, wait, maybe somebody was on the field that day.
But hold on, we can't go back to the last time Alabama beat Tennessee because that's just last year.
I would say,
that's not season to remember. Yeah. That just happened. We got to do an actual season to remember.
I was on that team. Why do I always have to be in the crosshairs of these seasons to remember? Why can't we go to a year that had something good happen at Alabama?
It is hard to believe, though, that,
I was Tennessee a redshirt freshman that year.
Was a storied program, and yet you got to go all the way back to when this guy was playing football to find a Tennessee victory in the series.
I'm going bald, yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
right?
Now I was 19 years old. I remember it very, very vividly up in Neyland Stadium. I remember the image of John Parker Wilson, our quarterback, having to put the cigars away that he had in his locker afterwards. Had to put the cigars away. It was a tough thing. It was an extremely tough thing for us.
Shannon Burgess in the comment section says Tony Sasheries literally is good on everything. Shannon, I appreciate you weighing in on that. And as a proud Louisianan, I know you know about your tailgate spices, so we appreciate you weighing in on that.
How about our guy Ryan Fowler in the comment section? Why is Mike Johnson wearing orange?
Oh,
I'm not wearing
Ryan Fowler. Thanks for noticing this.
This is a red shirt.
This is controversial.
And I'll tell you this.
I gotta tell you, I don't know if that's red.
Is
this red?
I've had comments on this shirt every time I wear it that I'm wearing Georgia colors. So now it's Tennessee week. Now it's an orange shirt. I think Ryan Fowler's eyes are just messed up.
This is controversial. Michael Gillespie does come to your defense, though. He says it's not orange. But listen, it's a 35-point spread. We'll take whatever controversy we can stir up. We certainly don't have any controversy on the field, so we're going to have to go to like Tennessee hype videos and Mike Johnson's shirt, just anything to try to turn this into a storyline.
I don't own anything orange. There's nothing orange in my entire closet. I promise you can go look right now.
Cliff Nelson says looks orange to me.
Come on, Cliff.
John Giles says looks tangerine. Yeah, Mike, you may get some grief in the comment section about this. Now, let me shift gears here, get back to our First and 10, our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10. Let me talk about a subject that kind of came up the other day here on AT&T's SEC Country Live, where we found out that Mike Johnson will not ever say a bad thing about an offensive line. I mean, ever. There was a moment in the Vanderbilt-Alabama game where his alma mater, for goodness sakes, Rashon Evans, the Alabama linebacker, against the Vanderbilt offensive lineman, just goes in there and lights this guy on fire. I mean, he just puts him in outer space, and you come on the show the next day. Well, he got tripped. He
was on his way down.
He got tripped
before Evans even hit.
And so we decided that you must be the biggest offensive line homer in the world.
Maybe so.
Well, Rashon Evans, according to Cole Kubelik on Twitter, was right back out to his ways again on Saturday, kind of shoving another offensive lineman to the ground. Please tell me you'll give Evans some credit this time. Look what the move that he puts on this offensive lineman.
You can be honest about the text I sent you. You can be honest about the text I sent you because I talked to you about this. I talked to you about this in the text. There's nothing I can do for this guy. This guy just got flattened. Hey, listen, I'll be an offensive line homer all you want to. There's nobody to trip over. There's only grass right now. So maybe the grass got him, but there's nothing I can do for that guy.
Is that just pure pad level, or is Rashon Evans just that much stronger?
Pad level and explosion, and definitely just, I don't know, maybe just a little bit more anger at the point of attack. Rashon Evans definitely got the best of him right there. There's nothing I can do for that guy. You're done, buddy.
I texted you this other day, and I mean this. Rashon Evans from Auburn High School. And Auburn, how'd you lose that guy, by the way? But from Auburn High School, Rashon Evans may be the best high school player I ever saw.
Well, I believe it because he's been shaping into this year one of the best college football players that I've ever seen. Especially this last week. I think he's finally getting healthy. I mean, 6 tackles. I think he had 2 sacks this past week, and that's what we really thought we'd see from Rashon Evans all year long. He's been obviously nicked up since the Florida State game, but he's definitely getting back to form. And I think it's exciting for Alabama as a defense that you're starting to get that guy you just saw on film is going to show up every week now.
All right, let me do item number 7 on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list before we bring in Mike Griffith to talk some Tennessee Vols on today's program. And many of you know that I do a daily podcast, also a video show for DogNation.com. I call it Dog Nation Daily. But I'm not the only one that does a show like this. We have Carter the Power Bryant, who does a show for LSU Tigers fans each and every day on the SEC Country page for the LSU Tigers. And on a recent podcast, Carter, I thought, brought up a really interesting point. We know we've got a Magnolia Bowl this Saturday between LSU and Ole Miss. And Carter Bryant reminds us back to a time when Shea Patterson, the Ole Miss quarterback, was choosing between LSU and Ole Miss. Where would his college home be? He chose Ole Miss, and on an episode this week, Carter the Power said maybe Shea Patterson made the wrong choice. Here's a little bit of how Carter explained maybe what Patterson should have done instead of going to Ole Miss. Take a listen to this.
It is not out of the realm of possibility to have seen Shea Patterson in an LSU uniform. Louisiana ties, his brother was coaching there, and the Tigers did recruit him. My question for you today: what would LSU look like with Shea Patterson as their quarterback? Do you think that they would be a national championship contending team? I would say yes.
I think it's a great topic. I think it's a terrific topic. I think the idea of a top-flight quarterback on LSU, and you're kind of shaking your head no, I actually think he's probably right about this. I think you put a great quarterback, not an above-average quarterback, and Etling's having a better year than I thought he would, and a better year than I've kind of given him credit for in the past. But you put a Shea Patterson-level quarterback on LSU, I think this is a championship contending team.
Championship contender, I'm not sure. Probably beating Troy, possibly. Yeah. But I don't think Danny Etling's been bad enough to where you can say, man, if we plug Shea Patterson, it'd be that much better. I don't know that the offense looks any different with Shea Patterson in there. I think he definitely made the right choice at the time. I think we can hindsight that all we want to. Yeah. But I think if you go back 2 years ago, Joe Oliva was trying to fire Les Miles even 2 years ago.
That's a good point.
Ole Miss won 10 games 2 years ago, had just beaten Alabama, so they were having a good year. So I think he made the best choice at that time. Looking at it in hindsight, obviously you can't do that. But I think when I start to shape up this year, I think it would have been a good marriage. I think he is better than Danny Etling for my money. But I just don't know that he makes LSU that much better. I think they have issues on so many different areas. Defensive line, linebacker core, running back position, offensive line. I don't know that Shea Patterson is able to cover up enough deficiencies from LSU that you would say that's a championship caliber program.
Shannon Burgess says, I'm with BA on this one. Stephen Early, slightly different opinion. He says, what if Orgeron botched his development, though? A great quarterback isn't always great. A quarterback, regardless of coach that maybe Patterson, who thought he'd get better tutelage from Hugh Freeze than he was going to get from the LSU coaching staff. Now, Matt Canada's there now. That is a fair point that the LSU coaching staff's got to be able to develop that quarterback. But when you're a five-star player, you have a chance to be developed a little easier than a Purdue transfer like Danny Etling would be. So from that standpoint, I think the LSU coaching staff would have done just fine with him. But that is a worthwhile consideration that the commenter brought up.
Well, five-star quarterback definitely has the opportunity to be developed better than probably a transfer. But when's the last time LSU's done that? I mean, it's kind of like Florida at this point right now. When's the last time they did develop a five-star quarterback, or any quarterback for that matter? I just don't think it's Danny Etling. I think you can point to so many other deficiencies right now. Like I said, I mentioned the offensive line. The fact that they're playing so many true freshmen on the offensive line. They've got freshmen all over the field for this team. Arden Key hasn't been Arden Key. Darius Guys hasn't been Darius Guys. So I think we can point to Danny Etling and say maybe we could get a little bit better at the quarterback position, but I don't know if Shea Patterson gets you over the hump enough to say, man, we could have run the table. This is a team that lost to Troy, by the way, that should not have. And all of a sudden we're going to say the quarterback position could save that. I don't think so.
A couple quick comments. John Giles says Zach Mettenberger couldn't get us to a national championship. That's a fair point. We've also heard from some Ole Miss fans who said that Patterson made the right choice. I think that's a really interesting topic of discussion. And that recruiting decision, Patterson was, from the state of Louisiana before transferring to IMG. I think that's one of those interesting subplots that'll make LSU Ole Miss actually a pretty fun game on Saturday. Another fun game, at least Vols fans hope it is the game against the Alabama Crimson Tide. A guy that's been covering the Tennessee Vols for SECCountry.com and really doing a great job kind of keeping us up to date on everything kind of happening with the future of Butch Jones is Mike Griffith from SECCountry.com. And I guess, Mike, let me start with a very blunt question, if you don't mind. Do you believe that Butch Jones will coach a game for the Vols beyond Saturday?
Yeah, I think he will. Barring just a complete embarrassment, like a 65 or 70-0 type of game. I think that there's really not a benefit to a mid-season firing if you think about it, unless there's some NCAA issues or some abuse of players, or if the team quit. Now, if Tennessee were to go out there and just not show up in Tuscaloosa, then maybe you consider an interim head coach, but I haven't seen that out of Tennessee. I saw a Tennessee team that, I thought really played hard against South Carolina, turnover-free game. And, you guys were mentioning LSU a second ago against Troy State, gave up over 200. I think, people got to look a little deeper. Everybody wants a quick fix. Everybody wants a fast answer. It wasn't so long ago that Matt Stafford was at Georgia, the all-time highest-paid NFL quarterback, couldn't win anything at Georgia. It takes a team. It takes a program. It takes everybody being on the same page. And you know what? It takes a little bit of luck. I mean, Tennessee's 2 plays from being 5-1. Nobody wants to hear that. People in Knoxville are sick of Butch Jones. They want to win a championship. A lot of people want to see him fired. But then you say, then what? Who are you going to hire? And what's the guarantee that's going to take you to the promised land if you do get rid of Butch? You're probably hitting the reset button, and you're probably looking at another 2 or 3 rebuilds.
Let me play devil's advocate on one point, though. You said there's no benefit to a midseason firing, but with the advent of the early signing period, in December, guys are going to put into national letters of intent. If Tennessee wants to hold together any kind of recruiting class, and I know Greg Emerson defended Jones this week, but a lot of other players have outright decommitted. A few other are probably about to, based on a lot of what you hear. Tennessee's got to consider recruiting here, right? And that is one of the benefits of potentially a midseason firing, is that it gives you a chance to be ready to go in December when a lot of these guys will start signing letters of intent.
Yeah, well, if you have the next guy ready, but who's out there that's not working right, Tennessee wants to hire. I mean, I don't think they want to do a rush job. I think you want to take your time and make sure that you get the right guy. I mean, a lot of people are talking about what Kirby Smart's done at Georgia, and it's impressive, but Mark Richt set the foundation. I mean, Kirby walked into a program that was one of 3 or 4 in the country that had won 8 games or more 4 straight years. And that's pretty doggone impressive. Butch Jones, conversely, took over a 2-14 team that was on probation. So, 2 coaches that came in at different places in the program, 2 different foundations. And, Brandon, if they had the next guy ready, if John Gruden was ready to come back to coaching and Tennessee could hire him tomorrow and then the beginning of John Gruden, that'd be one thing. But if you're going to fire a coach and hire an interim coach, I don't think that helps recruiting at all. And I'm sure all sorts of people want Butch Jones fired in Georgia because he's still got a better class than anybody in the SEC, according to these rankings I'm looking at. And a lot of these kids from Georgia. I mean, Tennessee winning with Georgia kids. And so I get it that Georgia wants him fired. Butch has gone down there, and Josh Dobbs lives forever. I mean, Alvin.
Yeah, but come on, Mike. I mean, the kids from Georgia they have for this class don't have Georgia offers. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, most of these kids do not have Georgia offers.
Yeah, well, like I said, they got the highest-rated class in the SEC right now, so I'm not sure why you would want to break that up and fire the head coach. Again, I don't understand the reason for a mid-season firing. If you could better the program, if it could solidify the future, and oh, by the way, we're only halfway through the season. I mean, Butch Jones could still win 8 games, and last time I checked, that's pretty good.
Hey, you mentioned John Gruden. What'd you make of his presence in Knoxville on Saturday? What was that about? Is there something there, something to that, or is that just, I don't know, just a weird coincidence?
His son goes to the University of Tennessee. That's why he was here.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he had to get media attention for that.
Well, sure. John Gruden likes all sorts of media attention, and he's kind of played that game for the last 8 or 9 years of maybe I'll leave the broadcast booth. But meanwhile, his TV money keeps going up, and, he's still not sleeping on a couch in an office until 4 in the morning. And I know that Gruden is toyed with the notion of returning to coaching, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen him willing to make the commitment. I know Bill Cowher was a guy that, Tennessee thought maybe they could get the last time they fired Philip Fulmer with some games left in the season. That didn't work out too well, and I think Tennessee's probably learned their lesson about firing a head coach before you have the next guy ready, and you've also got to make the right hire. I mean, that Lane Kiffin hire, I can't stress enough what that 1 year did to Tennessee. That 2009 season, Brandon, they were on probation through 2014 because of what Lane Kiffin did in 1 year, and the kids that he recruited, the kind of trouble they got into in the community, I mean, that was the equivalent of a nuclear spill. And so you've got to be very careful that you've got the next guy picked out, that you've got the next guy ready, and that it's an improvement over what you have. I mean, Georgia, I think really lucked into a great coach in Kirby Smart, who's a former player. It's a destination location. A lot of people say Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. But gosh, I look at Jim Harbaugh and got the same record Butch Jones does over the last 10 games.
Good point.
Mike, we can talk about the future all we want to, and I know we're going to ping pong back and forth at least for the next week or so about that topic. Let's talk about right now, though, because I think it's an interesting, really, scenario. When you talk about the Tennessee locker room, those guys aren't, they're not deaf to what's going on outside the program. You're around that program, you're around the players, you're around the coaches. What do you think Butch Jones's message is to the Tennessee team, specifically this week going into play this Alabama game?
Well, this is their season. I mean, this is their legacy season. These seniors, and I think it's ridiculous. You've got some former Tennessee players in this community that played in the Peach Bowl that are saying that Tennessee's 9-win seasons the last 2 years don't mean anything. And let's take a look in the mirror here. When's the last time Tennessee football was really relevant? I think you've got to go back to 2001 to see the last time there was a Tennessee football team that could contend for a national title. And in fact, the last time Tennessee played in a BCS or a New Year's Six level bowl was the 1999 season. So it's been a long time since Tennessee football was competing at a championship level. And, Butch Jones is telling these guys, hey, this is your senior season. This is your Team 121. You can still make great memories. You can still win football games. And who are the people on the outside to judge what a successful season is? I mean, what Tennessee did last year, winning 9 games, the memories they made between the hedges for those Tennessee fans that traveled down there and watched them beat Georgia again, the win over Florida last year, trailing 21-3 at the halftime. I mean, those are big wins, beating Virginia Tech in the Battle of Bristol, playing an overtime game against Georgia Tech and winning 42-41. As Georgia fans know, a tough team to beat, let alone if you only see them once every 20 years. So they can still make memories, and I think that's what Butch Jones is trying to sell the kids on. Now, from the outside, analysts like us can go, well, stepping back, this isn't going to be viewed as a successful season because they didn't win the SEC East Division or because they had a historic loss to probably the best Georgia football team that I've seen since Herschel Walker wore those colors. But for those guys, it's week to week, Mike, and you could probably speak better to that as somebody that played the game, and I think you know what each one of those opportunities means. Maybe later in life you'll look back, but right now those kids are living in the now. They've worked real hard, and they want to take advantage of every opportunity they have to play on Saturday.
Hey, Mike, good stuff from you. Thanks for your coverage of the Tennessee Vols at SECCountry.com. We'll look forward to speaking to you on AT&T SEC Country Live again very soon.
Hey, Brandon, we got that train wreck, that Georgia-Alabama train wreck. They're getting closer, right? It's gonna be
the collision course is on, Mike. That's exactly right. We are on a collision course for sure. We'll look forward to talking to you about that and so much more in the days ahead. That's Mike Griffith, who covers the Tennessee Vols for SECCountry.com. This is AT&T SEC Country Live. AT&T, a proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make sure you switch to AT&T Wireless and DirecTV. You can stay connected all season long. Now, speaking of the Vols, let's make them the subject of item number 8 on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. And I don't know. I mean, you've hoisted a national championship trophy. You're going to tell me I'm being a jerk again. But for me, this is a really curious decision to be made. So somebody took a picture of the 1998 Tennessee National Championship trophy. Apparently, the Vols are displaying that at their athletic department kind of underneath a stairwell and kind of co-opted by the Tennessee phrase, brick by brick. So if you see, the guy that's posing the picture here is underneath the stairs, and the trophy is kind of surrounded by a partially built brick wall, kind of acknowledging Butch Jones's brick by brick phrase. I find this to be reprehensible because that ain't Butch Jones's national championship. That belonged to Philip Fulmer. They didn't build it brick by brick. They built it by player, building a respected roster, a real formidable program for a long time. And for Butch Jones kind of co-opt that as just sort of a part of one of his corny cliches, this is bad for Tennessee.
I don't know. I don't mind it being with Butch Jones's phrase. I really don't. I think that when you have a program like that and you are trying to build it brick by brick, that you pull out all the stops. Hey, I'm going to put this trophy right here next to my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, my problem is with the staircase.
Why is it underneath the stairs?
Listen, when you go to the Malmore Athletic Facility in Tuscaloosa, lit up with spotlights hanging over the street on Bryant Drive, and there's just, I mean, you can see it from a mile away. The thing is like glowing at night. That college football playoff trophy or whatever it is from the last victory they had. This is under a staircase. I mean, I don't know where in the building this is, but That's the worst part of it. It's not the fact that Butch Jones is putting it next to a stadium. The worst part is that it's under the staircase.
This is a program that gave its team championship rings for winning a regular season game against Virginia Tech. And they're hiding the national championship under the stairs? Is up, down, is right, left? Like, what is going on?
Oh, man, you're being rough on this Tennessee program.
Serious?
They did. The rings against Virginia Tech were terrible last year. That was a terrible idea. And like I said, if you have a national championship trophy, specifically a crystal ball back in, what was that, 98 they won it?
Yeah.
Spotlight. I'm talking about, like, hang that thing, especially in the era right now that Tennessee has enjoyed. Like Mike Griffith just said, it's been a while since they've been relevant on a national team. I mean, I'm hanging that thing, like, over the parking lot. I am letting everybody see this thing, and they've just kind of tucked it away under one of Butch's sayings.
Parker Price says the reason why it's under the stairs because it's probably got rust on it by now. Listen, I mean, trust me, my program can't be taking shots at Tennessee for how long it's been since the national championship. I'll leave that part of it alone. But the fact that it has been a while is only more reason going to put it sort of prominent first and center.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I feel like when you have something like that, you have to build like a monument, like an outdoor, like I'm just mean like waterfalls, like the whole bit. Tennessee has the money to do that. They have the money to be able to make this just like gaudy. I mean, like gaudy. If you've only won that one trophy, here in quite a long time, and frankly, I think it's a huge letdown to see my own eyes to see that it looks like that and it's kind of hidden away. Bad look for me.
I agree with Darren Stinchcomb, who said that whoever made this decision was not fulfilling leadership reps. That is not leadership reps. It's not.
Who did they bring in? They were like, all these cool places and windows around the street, beautiful facility. Let's stick it right there, right under that staircase. Listen, there, and that way maybe nobody will see.
I'll give you a compliment. It'd be one thing if Alabama did this. They got a bunch of national championships. I'm sure they got them, kind of coming out of every corner. Yeah. Plus the ones they actually won, the ones the SID made up, like all the different national championships. I
knew it was coming. You acted like it was going to be a compliment, and then there was some made-up national championship on the back. That's fine. That's fine. We probably.
But come on, about that. Tennessee, what are you doing on this? All right, let's move on to item number 9, AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So this is one of those really juicy rumors that came out last week. But now it seems a little less relevant based on the action on the field on Saturday. Yes. Dennis Dodd was writing for CBSSports.com. I believe we have you a couple sentences from Dodd from his column at CBS Sports suggesting that Penn State officials are preparing for Texas A&M to make a run at hiring Nittany Lions coach James Franklin should Kevin Sumlin and the Aggies part ways. Now, you know me. My favorite thing in the world of college football, I like coaching rumors more than I like games.
Yes.
If you gave me a choice about talking about a coaching rumor or talking about an actual game on the field, I'm going to talk about the rumor every time. That's a juicy rumor. The only problem is A&M goes on the road and beats Florida. All of a sudden, Kevin Sumlin does not look like he's going anywhere. So does the Sumlin win? Do the recent Texas A&M performances kind of render these rumors moot?
I don't know that the recent performances alone render it moot. I think when you start to look at their schedule and how they're playing and how you feel like Kellen Mond is coming around. I said last week that he had improved week to week. Did not improve when they played Florida. I mean, they went in there and got a win, but 8 of 24 is not going to get it done. When you look at the quarterback position under Kevin Sumlin, he's got to be a better player than that. But you know me, what my favorite thing to do is look at the schedule. Look what you have coming up. You're going to get Mississippi State, an Auburn team that looks like they don't really know what's going on right now offensively. New Mexico, I guess, Ole Miss. Some of those teams you feel like Texas A&M will be overmatched against. So I think this has really yet to play out in a lot of fans' eyes down there because you have the ability, you feel like, to really run the table. Look at that schedule and how it matches up. Kevin Sumlin could get to the end of the year having lost 2 games.
Yeah, and 9-3 is still a pretty good season for the Aggies. That's better than Vegas would have thought and better than most of our audience would have thought before the beginning of the season. Bo Molinari says that Sumlin's seat's getting a lot cooler right now. It certainly feels that way. I think it ought to be if he has the kind of record we just described. Terrence Collins says, why would James Franklin leave Penn State in the first place? Texas A&M's a better job than Penn State. Penn State's a better team, but Texas A&M's a better job.
You really think so?
You want to recruit Texas or Western Pennsylvania? Now, there's some kids in Western PA, a lot of quarterbacks. There's some players there, but not like you got in Texas. And, you had a long time at Penn State where the head coach was making like $800,000 a year. I mean, that's a pinching program compared to Texas A&M that's going to spend millions on everything. Compare how nice Kyle Field is to how nice Beaver Stadium is. I'm not even telling you it's worth discussing because I think that someone's going to keep his job. But Texas A&M's a better job. It's just a matter of James Franklin wants it.
And I understand what you're saying when you talk about being able to recruit Texas. But here's what you got to know. Everybody around Kevin Sumlin in that Texas A&M program, they're recruiting Texas too. They're recruiting Louisiana too.
More competition.
More competition. When you get up into the Big Ten, and obviously Penn State, the Big Ten looks better now than it has in recent memory. But Penn State has to beat a couple of teams a year. And other than that, you can run the table if you're James Franklin. So I'm not willing to say that Texas A&M is definitely a better job than Penn State. I think when you're a good Penn State head coach and Penn State is good, that right there in Happy Valley, you are a god. You are a god up there. I don't know that is the same way specifically at Texas A&M because there's so many other college programs in the state of Texas. I mean, Texas really, to me, runs that kind of state, and I know I'm going to anger some A&M, but that's just the way it is in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's wild for Texas, and you'll talk about like a misplaced sense of entitlement. I mean, I don't know that it belongs. Tech used to. Now, Scott Crisler says the boosters in administration at A&M want him gone. That may be true, but y'all know this. Y'all watch us do this show every day. These boosters and administrators change their mind every 5 seconds. Yeah. We all change our mind. So, what's true 4 minutes ago is not going to be true 10 minutes from now.
Oh, I mean, just look at Ed Orgeron right now. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, the boosters and everybody, you're calling meetings and the president wants to know and former players are calling him out. Then all of a sudden, he beats Florida and Auburn in a row, and all of a sudden he's really getting the ship righted and he's turning things around, and we're looking at, I don't know about extensions, but that feels like the way things are right now in coaching changes in the SEC. It's the haves and the have-nots, and a lot of people were sitting there on the wall wondering which one they are.
Let's just AT&T SEC Country Live first and 10 list. So Mark Brett, our colleague that covers Alabama for SECCountry.com, I guess he found this on Snapchat. Now, if you gave me 3 days, I couldn't find a video on Snapchat. I don't even know I don't even know where to go to find Snapchat. Like, it might as well be buried in like the Egyptian pyramids. But apparently there was a video of Nick Saban running and jumping and touching.
Y'all are going to do my guy like this.
Touching the top of the sign. Look, there's the picture right there.
Y'all are going to do my guy Nick like this because you're going to make a short joke. Because you're going to make a short joke about him jumping. Is that what it is?
Well, no, I mean, listen, am I going to make the short joke? Of course I'm going to eventually. but I feel like him jumping up and touching the sign is a story on its own.
Here's what the deal is. The joke's on y'all, though, because he's hitting something that says win, and that's something he's done a lot of. So, hey, he is short. If he's 5'8", I'll be shocked. But, he's tall in stature.
I mean, seeing him jump up like this, wouldn't you agree that's
I know. I've been behind him when he's done this. I always kind of chuckled to myself and try not to let him hear me because you're running out of the tunnel behind him and you see him kind of jump up and everybody else on the team is just kind of walking under it, trying not to hit their head, and Coach Saban's jumping in his, his coaching shoes trying to hit the pipe. It is interesting.
That's a little surprise, right? It's a little surprise.
How many words are we going to fit here? Little, small.
I'll give him a compliment. This is another example. I had him spinning around the go-kart the other day. He's running up and jumping signs. Is he this confident right now that all of a sudden he's become like this sort of like fun-loving guy?
He's been doing this for 10 years.
Like running up and jumping the top of a sign, something like a 5-year-old kid does.
This is what I always try to explain to you. This is the Nick that I've seen. This is the Nick, and all the players know this is Nick. It's just that Snapchat has unleashed this, and all of a sudden you start to see more viral videos. Nick Saban did this when we were running out behind him in 2007. He was always jumping up and hitting the post. It's just now coming out, and you're starting to see more of his personality. It is what it is. The fact that he has to jump and hit it. I know there's going to be a bunch of jokes about that, but this is his personality.
Pretty good side of Ed Orgeron coming up in just a moment for our Champion of Life as we close out today's show. Before that, I'll remind you that AT&T SEC Country Live brought to you by AT&T, proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make the switch. AT&T Wireless, DirecTV, they'll keep you connected all season long. All right, before we do our Champion of Life, let's do our AT&T look ahead here and look at some of the top national games coming up on Saturday. So Wisconsin's kind of in the mix now. I don't know that Maryland does a whole lot for you there. I put the Miami game on here because that's a chance to play a team that just beat Clemson a week ago. Miami now up to number 8 after back-to-back wins over Florida State and Georgia Tech. How about the 2 nice games, though, in primetime between Michigan, Penn State, USC, Notre Dame? I know you'll be coming off the Alabama-Tennessee game. Georgia doesn't play on Saturday, so I'll be able to kind of settle in and watch both these national games. That's actually pretty fun right there.
Yeah, I definitely love both of those national games. And remember how I gave you the upset special for Friday? I like Syracuse to beat Miami this week.
You think Syracuse wins? Hold on now.
Yeah.
This ain't AT&T, what do you call it? ACC
I don't even know what the spread is.
But that's a hot take right there. You're going to tell me that Syracuse in consecutive weeks beats Clemson and Miami?
I don't even know what the spread is, but I like what Dino Babers is doing up there. I like how they look against Clemson last week. And Miami, for everything they've done and they're undefeated, I just don't feel it from them. Mark Richt, to me, has gotten lucky in a lot of these circumstances. I feel like they're a little bit overhyped. I don't know what the spread is, but I like Syracuse to at least make a lot of noise in that game.
When it's all said and done, LSU's win over Syracuse is going to look like a good win.
It's going to look like a really good win. When you start rewinding that thing, it's looking better and better each week.
All right, speaking of LSU, they are the subject of our Champion of Life today. We close out the show each and every day the same way. Much like Butch Jones looking for Champions of Life, we're looking for them too. And in anticipation of his matchup against his old employer, Ole Miss. Ed Orgeron was asked this week about what he missed about Oxford, Mississippi. And one of the things he said was apparently a food delicacy from a local gas station. Here's Ed Orgeron as only he could be. Take a look.
Do that in the administration or just at the school at all? Is there any connection?
You know, I used to stop at the Exxon and get a chicken on a stick, and it was fantastic. And I hope that cook is still there, and I can stop and say hello to her. That's about all I remember.
This is in Oxford? Or,
yeah.
Exxon?
Chicken on a stick.
How
it was phenomenal.
It's good chicken on a stick?
The best I ever had. Not better than Raisin Cane's.
I guess what he's like a sponsor of Raisin Cane's.
Sure, yeah.
I do love the fact that the reporter tries to ask him like 3 follow-ups.
Yeah. The reporter's like, hey, let's keep this conversation going, seeing what else we can get out of his mouth right here.
And I also love the fact that he thinks that chicken on a stick from a gas station was made by a cook or like a chef, like some chef's hat doing this.
Yeah, like
this
she
thing
was
was
doing
made
the
in some
seasoning.
factory, like 200 miles from
She's
the
taking
place.
it out the fryer, maybe. I don't know.
All right, hey, make sure you subscribe to our podcast. It's on iTunes. You can also share the show with your friends on Facebook. Let them know we're talking SEC football each and every day here at AT&T's SEC Country Live. We're back again 3 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Hope you'll have a great day. Thanks so much.